Hey y'all, welcome to the Southern Appalachian Herbal Podcast. I'm Judson Carroll and I'm an herbalist. I'm also a wild crafter, a gardener, and herb grower. I'm coming to you from high atop the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, just a stone's throw from the Tennessee line, overlooking the Pisgah National Forest. Absolutely surrounded by the bounty of God's green earth. I spent most of my life wandering these mountains and learning about plants from the old timers and all sorts of characters. On this show, we'll talk about herbs and how to use them, how to find them, how to grow them, how to make preparations. We'll talk about a lot of things. We can also talk about permaculture, homesteading, foraging, and living off the land. Most anything, really. You can email me at southern-appalachian-herbs@gmail.com if you have a question or a comment. You can also contact me through the Grow Network, where I'm a regular contributor and a moderator for the forums. And my blog is, of course, Southern Appalachian Herbs at blogspot.com. All right, y'all. I'm going to sit my guitar down and let's talk about herbs.
Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. It is spring. It's finally spring. It doesn't look very spring-like outside, but I probably have not told you how much I absolutely love spring. Winters are cold in the mountains. I live on a north-facing slope. Let me try to explain that for people who don't live in the Appalachian Mountains. Uh, I live on a north-facing slope, um, right above a river in a steep valley. Now, what that means is the sun comes up on my property about an hour after it comes up for the rest of the world and goes down about an hour earlier. Maybe a little bit of an exaggeration, but the winds sweep down from Grandfather Mountain, which is a peak over a mile high that's right behind my house. They come straight down into the valley. They blow like crazy. I mean, all winter long, we'll have 70-mile-per-hour winds. And I am not kidding. Every storm that comes up is just like a gale. The snow falls, the ice falls, and it literally lays in my yard longer than anywhere in the area. Like I'm in a little community called Linville, right? Linville is a town of 70 people in the winter. I mean, literally 70 people in the winter. Our county seat is about 400 people in the wintertime. It's remote. If you drive just, I don't know, 5 miles away to the next little community, which is called Linville Falls, they're a full USDA hardiness zone higher. Actually, two, if you factor in the shade and the cold air that comes down the mountain. It's cold at my house. There is a reason I have herbs that grow in my yard and around my property that only grow in, you know, well, that's actually about the only place in the South they grow. My little microclimate, I guess I should say, is comparable to two other areas. Most of the year, it's very much like the Catskill Mountains of New York, believe it or not. I actually have herbs that grow here like Devil's Club. It's in the Aurelia family. It's an adaptogen, very rare and expensive. That the only other place they grow in, the lower 48 east of the Mississippi is the Catskills of New York and going up into Maine. I mean, I have this like really cold environment, but I also get 270 plus days of precipitation a year. That means the only other area outside of like, tropical areas like Miami, if you've ever gone down to Florida, it just like rains every day at noon. It's crazy. Um, the only other place in the temperate zone of the United States that is similar to where I live is a little island off the coast of Washington State. I literally live in a rainforest, a freaking cold rainforest. So I celebrate spring. Yes, I absolutely celebrate spring. My tradition is St. Patrick's Day, which is, always a little few days before spring. I go out for a hike, no matter what the weather is. I usually end up um, crashing through an icy spot, knee deep in mud, freezing myself to the bone, coming back completely soggy and miserable. But I go out on St. Patrick's Day to see that first little breath of spring. And in the next few weeks, where I live, I never give the exact location because, there's some weird people on the internet. I gotta tell you, y'all, I actually had a run-in with a few of them last week. You know, I am open about my faith. I'm a Christian. I'm also Catholic. I'm a convert to Catholicism, and I know why I'm Catholic. I didn't just, I wasn't just born Catholic and I carry on. Um, I was at Liberty University, a Southern Baptist university, when I converted to Catholicism. You know, um, I won't say a thing bad about Liberty or anybody that goes here. Dr. Jerry Falwell was so kind to me. He was so incredibly kind. He was a man with a big heart. I know a lot of people may have taken offense to various things he said over the years. Okay, you're going to take offense to various things I say. I would take offense to various things you say. I'm not a fan of cancel culture. Let me tell you, if you ever got to know Dr. Jerry Falwell, he was a giant among men. He has a big man with huge hands. When he slapped you on the back, which is what he did whenever he saw you, slap you on the back, you felt like somebody just picked up a ham and hit you with it. The man was a giant in many ways with the biggest heart. And he saw my talents and he appreciated me. And he literally said to me, anything you want to do, anything you want to do in your career or your life, call me. I will give you a recommendation. I'm behind you 100%. Now, people don't do that. Let me stress this. Um, and I know I've wandered far off topic, but in your life, you may meet one or two people that do that. But Dr. Falwell, I spoke to him for 5 minutes. He shook my hand and he gave me a blanket endorsement for the rest of his life. That was a gift. And it was just instinct for him. He had good instincts. He knew when he met somebody, their heart. And I mean, now here I am, a Roman Catholic, 100 miles away, well, hundreds of miles away from Liberty University, but very, very far different in our doctrine and the way we present and the way we associate with people. But I will never forget going to Thomas Road Baptist Church, to a room up above, the upper room, wherever it was, and Dr. Falwell speaking to me, but listening to me and saying, no matter where you go in life, I am behind you. I am with you. He was a great man. Don't ever doubt that no matter horrible things that were written about him by people like Larry Flint, I mean, an absolute demonic possessed human being. Don't let them tarnish the reputation of a truly great man. It's like Jonathan Swift said, you will know when a great man enters the world by the confederacy of dunces that assembles to oppose him, which also became the title of one of the classics of Southern literature, A Confederacy of Dunces, which, also very different from what we're talking about right now, but I highly recommend that book. Really, really good book, by the way. So, A Confederacy of Dunces. Now, so I encountered some people online that, for no other reason but because I'm Catholic, decided to just absolutely try to destroy it. And I ended up having to leave a very good community, an online discussion where I had, 400 friends that I communicated with, but the owner of that group apparently either has anti-Catholic sentiments himself or does not believe that his group needs any community standards. Simply a standard of treating other people with respect, not insulting them personally or their religion. And while I am fully in support of free speech, okay, this is not a matter of free speech. When you have a group online, especially online where you don't know people face to face, it will be infiltrated by people that just want to cause trouble. A lot of those people have political motives. Right now, you may see a whole lot of people who are paid by certain foreign governments just simply trying to cause trouble and dissent among people in the United States. Just be aware, okay? But if you ever have a group like that, and I am pleased to be a moderator of several groups, let me just go ahead and tell you. You go to the Grow Network, you go to our forums, I'm a moderator. You can contact me personally and directly if you have a problem. And we will address that problem immediately. We're not going to let you be in an unsafe environment to the best of our ability at the Grow Network. I work with also PrepperNet. PrepperNet is the largest online community of preppers and people interested in prepping and dealing with, what might happen, whether it's natural disasters or wars or whatever, right? These are people who want to be prepared. I'm a moderator on PrepperNet. I work closely with the owner. If there's a problem, we deal with it immediately. Why do we deal with it immediately? Because if you don't, that problem's going to fester. If you don't, you're inviting people there who just want to make trouble, trolls. You may even be creating an environment where someone could threaten another person, where someone could encourage violence. If you are a owner of an online community and you do not address threats and obnoxious behavior and abusive behavior, you're setting yourself up for liability. You could actually be held responsible for the actions of another. So I'm giving you just a blanket warning for anybody who's involved in running an online group where people are allowed to freely converse. You have to protect yourself and to protect the people in your group, say, we allow free speech, absolutely, 100%, but we do not allow threatening or abusive behavior. So, in this group, I faced threatening and abusive behavior. I left the group. A lot of people in that group will now know why I left, and I'm sorry. I miss you all. Come find me on another group. You probably have my contact information one way or the other, but now you know why you're not seeing me communicate every day. I am very proactive in communicating with the people in the social media in which I'm involved. I take it seriously. People ask me a lot of questions about herbs. When they ask me questions about health, I'm very careful to say I legally can say this, I can't say that. Please go investigate this. I am always available as a friend and as a bit of a mentor when it comes to herbalism, or just to have a laugh or listen to a song, uh, talk about food or recipes in those groups where people treat me with respect. I treat them with respect. Very sadly, I had to leave what was formerly a very good group this past week because I looked at it and said, well, okay, I've emailed the owner of this group several times. He has not responded. Things are bad, they're getting worse, and somebody is going to get hurt. So, not saying the name of the group, but if you're part of that group, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Somebody on there advocating violence against Catholics, and that's not acceptable. That is actually abusive, that is immoral, and I'm not going to be a part of anything that's immoral. That's why I'm not on Facebook anymore. That's why I'm not on Twitter anymore. Those are immoral platforms. They not only allow, I mean, come on, they took the president of the United States off, but they allow the Ayatollah of Iran. They took off the leader of the free world, but they allow the guy who advocates killing Jews every day and killing Americans. Come on. That's an immoral platform. That's what I'm talking about. So, with freedom comes responsibility. That means being guards of our own tongues. That means self-policing. And, they're good places to be and they're bad places. And I'm sorry, but there was once a very good place that is now no longer a good place. Anyway, it's not like didn't try to warn them. So, springtime in the mountains, beautiful springtime. Very soon the trilliums will be coming up. I absolutely love the trilliums. We have red trilliums, we have white trilliums, we have pink trilliums, we have, I guess, variegated. We have trilliums with different colors, like multicolored trilliums. Will be white with a red streak or a red outline. The trilliums are gorgeous. Very, very closely related to traditions of Easter in the mountains. Trilliums have three petals. They have one flower on one plant, okay? Three petals, three seeds after the petal fades, three leaves. That's it. Now, trillium is actually was once used as an herb in American herbalism. If you read the old books, the Thompsonians, the eclectics that we talked about recently, if you go back to the old medical dispensatories, trillium was called Beth root or birth root. It was thought to assist in the birthing process. The herb can actually be very dangerous. Okay, this is not an herb that one wishes to use without care. Let me look up real quick the specific warnings on trillium. All right, so trillium, um, also called Beth root or birth root, as I said, was used by most North American Eastern tribes as a woman's herb to aid in childbirth. Also useful for irregular menstrual periods. It tends to cause uterine contractions. Now, obviously, that could be very dangerous, for a pregnant woman. I mean, it could cause a miscarriage. It can also be toxic in large amounts. All of these early spring herbs are really interesting because they're useful, they're powerful. These are powerful herbs. These herbs that come up first time, the first things that pop up in spring tend to be very potent. So looking at Plants for a Future, their website is naturalmedicinalherbs.net. If you've listened to the show for any time, I just absolutely love this site. They say specifically Beth root, as they call it, was traditionally used by various North American Indian tribes as a woman's herb to aid in childbirth and for treatment for irregular menstrual periods, period pains, and excessive vaginal discharge. Modern research has shown that the root contains steroidal saponins, which have hormonal effects on the body. These saponins are being used in gynecological and obstet I can't say that word. I've never been able to say that word. Obstetric medicine. The herb should not be taken during pregnancy except under professional supervision. Now, other than that, the root is antiseptic, aphrodisiac. What we mean by that, like I said, it stimulates uterine contractions. I'll let you fill in the blanks. Astringent, expectorant, tonic, uterine tonic. It is used internally in the treatment of a wide range of women's complaints, including bleeding after parturition, including hemorrhage of the uterus, urinary tract and lungs, also used to curb excessive menstruation. It has proven value in stopping bleeding after parturition, and the word I have trouble with. Externally, it is used to treat excessive vaginal discharge, ulcers, skin complaints, gangrene, insect bites, and stings. It is also used as a wash for sore nipples. The root is harvested in late summer after the leaves have died down and dried and used in later use. The whole plant is used as a poultice for tumors, inflammations, and ulcers. Okay, so very, very useful herb, right? Pay very close attention to what they said about it's harvested in the fall. Trilliums are rare in most areas. Where I live, they will grow, almost as prolifically as grass. I will walk out the door and I'll be surrounded in about 2, 3 weeks. They actually bloom at Easter. I said this is an herb with a lot of religious significance in the mountains. It's not just that everything about it is in threes, like the Trinity. It blooms on Easter. We'll have one last good snow usually the night before Easter, and the very next day you look out and it's just a field of abundant trilliums. They're in the woods, they're in your yard, they're everywhere. Okay. And they are gorgeous. They're one of the prettiest flowers you'll ever see. The plant, because it only has three leaves, one flower, and puts out three seeds, if you harvest the trillium before it seeds in any way, shape, or form, you've killed the whole plant. And it is rare in some areas. I mean, you could say, I'm going to take a leaf. Well, you just took a third of that plant's ability to get sunlight and turn it into energy and to survive. Don't harvest trilliums while they're in bloom. Don't harvest them before they seed. After that trillium seeds, the plant is going to die back. However, it is a perennial. If you leave it alone, it's coming back the next year. It's not an annual. Annuals, they grow from seed in the spring. They can they make their seed in the fall. They completely die in the winter. Okay, a perennial comes back. So the trillium is a perennial, but the important thing is here: give it time to produce those three seeds. Those three seeds have the potential to become three new plants. Then, if you have a very good reason to harvest that plant in the fall, after it's seeded, after it's died back, then okay, you can harvest the root. I would say that because this plant does not grow in a lot of areas as abundantly as it does in my area, try to avoid harvesting trillium at all. But if you have a need, that's when you harvest it. Some people will say you can grab a leaf from it. I don't agree. Now, there's a huge exception to this. I harvest the trilliums that grow in a walking or driving path. They're going to die anyway. Something spread that seed. A bird dropped the seed in a place where the plant's not going to make it. Somebody's going to drive over it. Somebody's going to walk over it. Look, I have a border collie. They tend to take the same path every day. Border collies are absolutely obsessive. That border collie will kill that plant. So I will harvest it from there. If there's an area where there's going to be, you know, real estate development, if someone's coming in, they're going to cut down all the trees and they're going to clear a lot. I highly recommend, and I cannot highly recommend this strongly enough because of where I live, go on that property with permission, of course, and look for any rare herbs, any herbs that are going to be destroyed. Take them, harvest them, use them medicinally, or transplant them and grow them. Where I live in the mountains of North Carolina, we have real estate development that is just pretty incredible. We lose thousands of acres of pristine mountain woodland with rare plants, endangered plants, every single year to real estate development. Now, people have a right to build a home and live wherever they want. They buy the land, they own the land. My problem is not with property rights. My problem is really with laws. Okay, let's say I'm sitting on my own property and some government official comes in there and sees a plant that's on the endangered list, the endangered and threatened official list. Suddenly my property rights are gone. Okay, they can prevent me from doing anything. They can. You've heard the stories about cattle ranchers with the grazing rights or timbermen. There's an endangered owl, or what was the snail darter? That was an issue at one point in time. Look up snail darter. You will be amazed the amount of property rights and restrictions people lose or are besieged with when someone finds a snail darter on their property. But in the mountains, at least where I live and everywhere else I've ever lived, I've lived in 5 states, real estate developers just go in and tear up everything. Nobody comes out there and says, wait, you have endangered plants. We need to restrict your activities. No, no, no. Real estate developers put a whole lot of money into politicians' pockets to make sure no one prevents them from developing wherever the heck they want. Okay? Am I opposed to real estate development? Not necessarily. But I think as herbalists, as naturalists, as foragers, as people who know about plants, we should proactively work with those real estate developers and go on that property before they tear everything up and say, oh, yeah, you have a pink lady slipper growing here, one of the most rare plants in the entire eastern United States. Um, is there a way we can responsibly and ethically move this plant to another location, which maybe pink lady slipper is a little bit of a bad example. It's an orchid. They're kind of hard to move. They grow in relation with the soil around them. If you're going to transplant a lady slipper orchid, you don't pick up the plant, okay? You don't pull it out of the ground. You have to cut out a large section of earth and move like a whole wheelbarrow load of soil to another location if you have any chance of keeping that plant alive. So I probably could have picked a better plant, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, of rare herbs, medicinal herbs and plants affected by real estate development that could be moved to another spot, another location, and grown. And I honestly think, I mean, we're supposed to be stewards of the earth. I am not the world's biggest environmentalist. I mean, everybody knows who listens to my podcast. I am a climate change skeptic, shall we say. I have not seen the science that tells me mankind can actually affect to any major extent the temperature of the earth. You know, um, we've had ice ages and hot periods and cold periods. I know the climate changes, certainly. I mean, I'm just saying I don't buy into a lot of the propaganda put out by environmental organizations that most people who are also practitioners of permaculture and herbalists swear by and live by. I just live in an environmentally responsible way because that's my lifestyle. I don't use a lot of electricity. I don't have a big carbon footprint. I like to live in a natural way. So I check all the boxes, even if I don't necessarily believe in what the people who drew the boxes believe in. But in terms of endangered plants or pressured plants or rare plants, why the heck aren't all the great environmentalists who listen to my podcast who would get so mad with me if I question anything Al Gore wrote or said? Yeah, he said that we'd be flooded in by the year 2000. We're not, but I have full right to question Al Gore, but the man's an idiot. Actually, Al Gore is a freaking moron, but a fat lecherous freaking moron at that. Um, why are all those people that would get just livid with me for saying that not going out and talking with the real estate developers in their area and saying, look, just give me an hour before you tear up everything on this property. Let me see if there's something here that needs to be preserved. The real estate developers would love that. I mean, as long as it's not a, totally protected species that could prevent them from developing the land, okay, that could actually be an issue in some areas. But think about all the green points they get. If they can say to their clients, I'm an environmentally friendly developer. I take care of the environment. Before I develop this piece of property, I have an herbalist or a plant person or whatever you want to call yourself, a mycologist, I don't care what you call yourself, a naturalist go out on this site, not a naturist, by the way, a naturalist. That means you wear your clothes. Okay, I'm off on a tangent again. I have someone go out on this site and survey it, and any threatened or endangered plants are transplanted to a safe environment where they can grow and reproduce before I develop this land. Any real estate developer would boast of that. It would be a huge boon to them. They could probably even get some government money. And you actually may get paid for doing this job. So listen to me now. We all need a little extra money in our pockets. Learn to identify plants. Go to your local real estate developer and say, I can go out and do this, and you can boast about it. You can brag about it. It can be part of your marketing campaign. You may be able to get some government money. And if you think it's valuable enough, pay me to do it. All right, we can do that. Trilliums are an excellent example. You don't have to dig up that trillium plant and move it. Just wait till it seeds. Collect those 3 seeds and take it to your own property or another piece of property, a nice place where it's going to grow and be abundant. That's being a good steward, and you can actually make a little money at this. So Trillium's, I mean, that puts me on a topic that I care deeply about, and I've seen so much development that's just so, like I said, people have a right to do what they want to on their own property, but when you go on a steep slope and you strip it and you build a house that is probably not going to be safe because of slope creep. I mean, the ground shifts and we get flash floods, and the people who buy that house can literally be killed. Okay, I have a huge issue with real estate developers that do that. It's not ethical. Remember that way our conversation about ethics? It's not moral to build an unsafe house. And our laws in North Carolina, one, they're not equally enforced. Um, let's just say there's a lot of political corruption in North Carolina, and there always has been. Someone with a lot of money gets a lot of special treatment, especially a developer. Two, they're not sufficient. We're this, booming real estate market, and people are coming in, and there have homes at the beach that are going to be wiped out by hurricanes, and the American taxpayer picks up the bill. Meanwhile, somebody can be killed. Nobody seems to worry about that. They have homes on steep slopes on the mountain that can be wiped away in a flash flood, or the ground can gradually shift and be a big problem. Everything underneath that area is affected by the flooding, the water just rushing through there, where all the trees that slowed things down have been wiped away. I have seen just horrible situations where people's lives were lost on two different sides of this state because of reckless, out of control real estate development, corrupt politicians, and frankly, no one giving a damn. As herbalists, our job is to give a damn. Okay? This is one little example of one little thing we can do. It comes down to a little tiny spring flower called a trillium. Okay? Go out and look for those trilliums in a couple of weeks. They are gorgeous. Take a picture of them, come back and take some seeds, replant those seeds. Some people say Martin Luther said it, some people say Benjamin Franklin said it. I think this quote has been attributed to 100 different people over the years. Beer, right? The beverage, the alcoholic beverage, is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy. That's actually a quote that has been attributed to many of the great men of history. I think the trillium that pops up on Easter with its beautiful three petals is evidence that God wants us to just stop for a moment and appreciate the beauty of nature. And I do that every spring. I mean, to me, it's as much a part of the tradition as that soggy hike I take on St. Patrick's Day. Also coming up about the same time will be Claytonia, spring beauty. Oh, such a beautiful flower with an edible root. It's one of the first wild edibles. Again, this doesn't grow everywhere. Where I live, it grows abundantly. And generations of people who lived in the mountains, that was their first wild thing, their first food they could eat in the spring. Spring beauty. Kept people alive. Gave some people something necessary in their diet, and one of the prettiest flowers you'll ever see. Very, very much associated with the trillium. The next would be bloodroot. Bloodroot is one of those valuable herbs that people in the mountains go out like looking for ginseng or golden seal, and they sell, and it's been a part of our livelihood around here. Such a powerful herb. Bloodroot taken internally, okay, it's a little dangerous. Like I said, a lot of these are some of our most potent herbs. Bloodroot has an opiate-like effect. It can kill you through overdose. It can make you high. It can, stone you out. Um, Used responsibly, it is an excellent herb as an analgesic, as a painkiller. The sap, which is blood red, has topical pain killing properties, but it's also caustic. It has been traditionally used to remove growths and tumors and moles and such. Very dangerous if it's used in that way, by the way. You need to know if you're going to use the herb for that purpose, you absolutely need to know not only the properties of the herb, but what you're dealing with. Um, you don't want to fool around with skin cancer, obviously. Um, but also used internally, it's good for bronchial infections, throat infections. It's an expectorant. Wonderful herb, beautiful flower. This flower is so cool because it blooms during the day, like morning glory, but in the evening it doesn't just close. The leaves of the plant will wrap around it and protect it from frost. This is like the grand design, intelligent design in nature is on full display if you ever just sit down and watch for a few hours a bloodroot flower. The power, the majesty of nature is about to be on in full display, coming up from the ground. The mushrooms will be coming up. The wood anemones, anemone, another powerful herb, can be very toxic if misused. All these plants will start coming up soon. And my absolute favorite of all of them, okay, the plant I look forward to every single year is about to come up in the next few weeks. It's ramps. Ramps. That's Ramps. Plural. I guess it would be Ramp in singular. And in Europe, they're called ramsons. Ramson. This is a wild leek, often called a wild garlic. This is the most delicious member of the allium or onion family you've ever encountered. They are fantastic. Go to north facing slopes, where I live. They don't only grow on north facing slopes, they will grow on many slopes, but they will grow more abundantly on north facing slopes beside a creek. Ramps like cold air, they like moist ground. So, by a creek on a north facing slope, you're going to find most of your ramps. That's the place to scout for them, though you might find them in many places. They grow, I'm going to say, up to 4 inches, maybe 6 inches at most tall. They have broad leaves that smell strongly of sweet onions and a bulbous root. They're in the allium family, so the root's going to be a bulb. They'll have a little flower later in the season, and the seeds don't really germinate reliably. So it's very important, again, not to overharvest ramps. If you have a ton of them and you want to pull some up and have the bulb, oh, it's so good. If you don't have them abundantly, or if you're trying to be a responsible harvester, take the leaves. The leaves will grow back, the bulb will remain. This is a perennial onion, or leek actually. It'll grow again and again every season. It'll put out some seeds, a few of which are going to take root. Ramps are medicinal. They are strongly antiviral, antiseptic, and antibiotic. They are expectorant. They are what we call a blood cleanser. They are lymphatic. They are just so, I mean, for generations, after the cold and flu season and being stuck inside, eating salted meats and breathing in wood smoke and coal smoke, these were essential for mountain people to get out and eat in the spring. They are one of the most medicinal plants and probably the very strongest member medicinally of the entire allium family. I mean, they they're incredible. How strong is a ramp? Well, if you eat a handful of raw ramps, they will so thoroughly permeate your blood and every cell of your body that you will begin to sweat the smell of ramps. You always know someone who's been eating ramps. Their breath smells, their body odor, their sweat smells, those ramps, that antibiotic, antiviral, antiseptic, anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory juice of those ramps is coming out of every pore of their body. Yes, if you eat ramps, you stink, and I absolutely love the stink of ramps because they are the most delicious member of the onion family as well. They are a bit hot like garlic, just a little bit hot, not real hot. I mean, they're not going to burn your mouth. They are sweet. They are pungent. My absolute favorite way to have ramps, and there's no wrong way to have ramps. They don't keep, by the way. You cannot store ramps. You cannot freeze them. If you dry them, you can have a little bit of a chive flavor. You dry the leaves. You'll notice it's a little different than chives. It's more like garlic chives. If you've ever had garlic chives, you have to have ramps fresh. They cannot be preserved in any way, shape, or form that's going to give you the full, sweet, pungent, delicious taste of fresh ramps. My favorite way to have them is to take the leaves and chop them up finely and make them into basically a pesto. You add in some olive oil. You can add some nuts if you like. Like a pesto, people put pine nuts in there. Pine nuts obviously are not native to my environment. We might throw in some walnuts or pecans or something like that. Chopped up with crushed red pepper, any kind of hot pepper. I think a smoked jalapeno is the best. Now, you have to prepare for this in advance. When peppers come in, they kind of tend to come in abundantly. Eat all the fresh jalapenos you can get. Take the ones that are getting a little old and hang them up. What you do is take some thread and just tie up or string, whatever you got. Just tie them by the stems and hang them for a few days. Now, jalapenos, unlike serranos and some other peppers, will not dry properly hung up like that. They will start to rot. They'll get a white spot and they'll just, rot in the middle. When they've dried just a few days, so they're starting to wrinkle, take them and put them on a smoker. Now, what I do is when I'm cooking barbecue, I take my pork and I put it over live hickory and oak coals, and I take my semi-dried jalapenos and put them all around it. The smoke will preserve them into what are essentially chipotle peppers without a sauce. The sugars in those jalapenos draw in that smoke. It is the most phenomenal ingredient in just about anything you'll make the rest of the year. You can take those smoked jalapeno peppers, put one in a pot of chili, and it just puts this incredible smoky flavor just throughout. They're absolutely delicious. So jalapeno peppers, either pickle them or smoke them to preserve them. Well, I like to take a smoked jalapeno pepper, chop it up fine with those ramp leaves and a little bit of olive oil. You can do this in a food processor or blender or whatever. I do it with a knife and some Parmesan cheese. And that makes a phenomenal spread. It's a pesto of ramps. Now I make a version of it also with blue cheese. Real, I mean, like good blue veined cheese. I mean, whether it's, Gorgonzola, which is sort of a mild blue, or like, a Stilton or a Maytag blue, a really strong, especially the Stilton, I love that, a really strong, funky, just powerful blue cheese in with the strong, funky ramp leaves and this hot smoked pepper. And take that and eat it as a spread on a little bit of that Easter ham. And where I live, it's tradition to have a ham for Easter. That is the most phenomenal combination of flavors you will probably ever experience. Oh, I'm sure you can hear in my voice why I'm so excited that it is spring. It is spring. It's time to go fishing. We have a little bit of a closed season around here because they stock our streams with trout in April. So for a couple of weeks, I can't go fishing, but by the time that's over and I can take my Tenkara rod, like, I'm going to tell you a lot about Tenkara in the next few months. I love to fish so many different ways. I love to fly fish. I love to fish with a spinning rod. Growing up, as a kid, I was a cane pole guy. I love a cane pole. A cane pole is just a length of bamboo with an equally length piece of fishing line on it and a hook and usually a little bobber, a little cork float. I loved to fish with my cane pole. I caught so many brim and bluegill and catfish with that cane pole. Tenkara is a Japanese style of fly fishing that essentially combines a fly rod with a cane pole into a telescopic rod that collapses you can stick in your backpack. You can go anywhere and fish any stream you see. You see a little bit of water that you think might have a fish in it, pull out the telescopic bits, expand it, I guess I should say, extend it. You tie the line on to the very tip. It's got a little place where you tie the line on, and you've got your fly. You use these very little flies. They're wet flies officially, but the way you fish it, they kind of sit on top of the water. And you can go out and see if there are any fish out there. I mean, it's so much fun. You can hike anywhere, you can drive anywhere you see a little bit of water. Maybe a minute at most. You've got your pole out and you're fishing. So I am so excited about going out fishing every day. It's my goal. Like I said, we get 270 days of rain a year. There are going to be rains. There are going to be days where it's raining so hard I can't fish. I know that. But I'm going to try my best this year to fish every single day, to forage every single day. And the next, you know, big point to make, it's almost morel season. When the ramps come out, the morel mushrooms come up. So in the next few weeks of this podcast, I'm going to be telling you about how to identify morels at my Substack. If you want to sign up for my Substack newsletter, I'm going to be sending out gardening tips. I'm going to be sending out foraging tips. I'm going to be talking about how to identify morels and grow herbs in your garden, but also fishing tips. And, I'm going to spend a lot of time outdoors this year. I always do, but this is going to be, God willing, this year I want to spend almost every minute, waking minute of every day outside with my hands in the dirt or my feet in a trout stream, and my nose to the ground, essentially looking for mushrooms. It's spring, and I'm so excited. So, people said last week they missed my 2-minute Latin lesson. Let's go ahead and get to it before I forget about it again this week. My 2-minute Latin lesson. I recall speaking of being at Liberty University, a law class, and we were talking about you use a lot of Latin in law, but you also use a lot of older English conventions. Let's say, if you were in a court of law in England or any of the British countries, you would hear phrases that we don't normally use in English. You would hear in America we say to a judge, "Your Honor," right? In England they also often say, "My Lord." Well, that was a bit of a controversy, you can imagine, at Southern Baptist Liberty University, to call a human being Lord. Wow. And then they would say, "Pray." Let me tell you this, pray. You're saying you're praying to a human being that you just called Lord? Oh my gosh. Okay, that was, whew, let me tell you. Got some people upset at Liberty University. Obviously, English is not the most precise language. We have words. One word may have 15 different meanings depending on what context it's used. Interestingly, Latin also is a language in which the meaning of a word is very much dependent on its context. But also Latin is far more specific. And that is why we use Latin in law. That's why we use Latin in science and botany. That's why we use Latin in theology. Let's think about it for a moment. There's those few words. In English, we have one word, pray. In Latin, that word can be used very differently. To actually pray is precata, precare. That's where we get the word to pray. In English, it sounds similar, right? Precare, precata, to pray. Well, to ask is rogare, rogat, rogare. In that instance in the court, the person is speaking to the judge. I am asking you to let me speak. Pray, listen to me. Well, in Latin, it would be rogare. Two totally different words that in English can get confused. We think about the motto of the Benedictines. It's ora et labora. It means pray and work. That's my personal motto for life, pray and work. Ora, in that instance, means pray. In most other instances, it literally just means to speak, to orate, to be an orator in English, ora. So you see, in the context, we understand that ora means to pray, whereas in the strict definition of the word, it just means to speak. Ora et labora, pray and work. Going back to what upset all my friends at Liberty so much, my lord, my lords and ladies, you'll hear in England. Lord in that instance is merely a term of respect. It's closer to English, what we might say, master. People got upset saying there's only one Lord. Okay, yes, there's only one Lord, Jesus Christ, right? But we call every dignitary in England a Lord. Why is that? Well, because English is not a precise language. In Latin, the correct word would be deus, God, right? Dia, deus, God, dia, goddess, deus, right? Or it could be domina, master. Dominus or domina, master or mistress. It could be, so many. Imperator, meaning ruler. I mean, there's so many very specific words we use in Latin that are just very confused in English. English is actually a very confused language. It takes in elements of Old English, Anglo-Saxon English, Latin, and German. That's really why we go to Latin when we're speaking in terms of botany, in terms of mycology, in terms of law or science or anything like that. It's just such a much more precise language. So when a very nice and well-meaning listener of my show got in touch with me a couple of weeks ago when I had mentioned saying prayers to saints, well, that was very scandalous to her, much like my friends at Liberty University. She said, we only pray to God. Well, that's absolutely true. Okay. But you got to remember, English is not a precise language. In terms of praying to saints, you never pray to a saint the way you pray to God. You ask of a saint to pray for you. St. Paul said in his writings and in the Bible, please pray for me. What does that mean? You're praying for someone. It's a rogare. It's asking. When we ask someone to pray for us, whether they're living or dead, because, Jesus said, I'm the God of the living. God is the God of the living, not the God of the dead. We believe the saints in heaven are just as alive as we are here on earth. They're actually more alive. They're actually in a spiritual condition, which means that they're not limited by space and time, and they're looking face to face with God. They're in a much more elevated position than we are. We are rogare. We're not precata. We are ora. We are orare. We are not precata. So, in many ways, Latin is a very useful language, not only in understanding plants, but in understanding doctrine and theology. If more people could read and understand Latin as opposed to English in reading their Bible, we would have far fewer divisions among denominations. So many people believe the King James is the ultimate translation of the Bible. Well, even if that was the intent of the King James Bible, simply by translating the Bible from Latin, a very precise language, into English, a very imprecise language, it means that the King James Bible is actually harder to understand to an English speaker and reader than the Vulgate, the Latin Bible. It means the Bible for the common people. If you can read Latin, you can far better understand the Bible in Latin than you will ever be able to understand it written in English. It's just simply the difference between the nature of the two languages. And I know that's very hard for people to understand. For some reason, it's controversial. I don't understand that. But I'm telling you, if people could read Latin and read Greek, they would be able to far better understand the English language Bible than if they can only read English. That is especially true of those Bibles used by certain denominations that were um, not translated by someone who could read Latin. There are certain translations of the Bible out there where someone literally just took a Latin to English dictionary and translated the words one at a time into sentences that make absolutely no sense. Absolutely no sense whatsoever, because language doesn't work that way. Language is always contextual. So that's my little, I guess we've gone a bit more than 2 minutes on Latin today, but you've learned a few words. You've learned orare, ora, to speak. You've learned precata, precare, to pray. You've learned rogare, to ask. You've learned, I think we'd already mentioned labore, to work, and you've learned, hopefully, that a lot of the confusion and division among our Christian brothers and sisters in various denominations comes down to not anything of any real importance, language, simply misunderstanding what the other is saying and misunderstanding what the other person's Bible says, simply because it's written in a different language. And that's very, very applicable to herbalism because that has been a defining factor for the last several thousand years, what language a person was using and how it was written. And it is very true in our own day, our own time, when we look at a common name for an herb and realize it's not the same herb. I talked about plantain before. So many different plants called plantain when there aren't actually plantain. You can call anything from uh, sort of a green banana to a plant growing in your yard, a plantain. They're not the same plant. It's also extremely true in what we might call a sarsaparilla. Sarsaparilla can be any number of smilax or aralias. Unless we know a little bit of Latin, we cannot agree on what plant we're talking about. And that can be very dangerous. It can lead to a lot of errors. It can lead to a lot of confusion. It can also lead to, you know, contraindications and health problems. So just a tiny fraction of Latin can actually make all the difference. So as you learn about herbs, start with the common name. A dandelion is a dandelion, right? I know a dandelion when I see a dandelion. If I say to you, this is a dandelion, that's a dandelion. Okay? You do not have to know it's Taraxacum in Latin. You do not have to know in French it's Dent de Lion. You only have to know it is a dandelion. If I am talking about a different herb, I need to be able to tell you what this herb is in a way that is equally identifiable to you as dandelion. And in so many herbs, the only way to do that, because the common name can be applied across the board to several different plants, always just keep in the back of your mind, keep in your notebook, keep at a reference at hand, a book that tells you both the common name and the Latin name so that we can know exactly what we're talking about. You know, a hyssop is different than an anise hyssop. If it's Hyssopus species, okay, if we know the Latin, we know exactly what we're talking about. So that's your little bit of Latin for the day. And as I always say, anything you know in theory or in writing or in concept is never going to be anywhere as valuable as what you know in real experience. And it's spring and it's time to get outside, walk barefoot, put your hands in the soil, go fishing, pick some flowers, grow some plants, and experience this wonderful, wonderful time of year, this time of rebirth, this time of revitalization. Don't ever waste a spring because we get far too few in our lives. Someday we will be in a place of eternal spring, but for now we only have a limited number. So y'all have a wonderful, wonderful week. Go out and experience, go barefoot. I know most of my audience are adults who have not been barefoot since they were children. Go barefoot. It's not only good for you physically, going barefoot actually stimulates all the nerves in your body. It strengthens your feet and ankles. It actually encourages your feet to sweat, which is actually a good thing. When your feet sweat, it's one of the most efficient means of detoxifying the body. Sweating feet is actually better for the liver than sweating anywhere else on your body, by the way. Um, and it feels great. It feels wonderful. It will remind you of being young and a child. Just be careful and don't step on any stinging nettles, which I have done before, and that's not pleasant. Or ants, look out for ants, look out for dog poop. Don't step on any pine cones. But y'all have an absolutely wonderful week, and I'll see you here next time. Oh, and don't forget, Herbal Entrepreneurs Conference is happening all next week, and I am a presenter. Go to herbalentrepreneurs.com. It's Yolanda Joy's project. I am going to be talking about my experience as an author. I'm going to be telling you how you can make a living writing. It's not just writing about herbs, it's writing in general. So check it out. I only talk for maybe, I don't know, 35, 40 minutes, certainly no more than an hour. And I tell you from beginning to end how you can make a living writing. So you probably have plenty of friends that are not interested in herbs whatsoever. Send them a link to the Herbal Entrepreneurs Conference and tell them to watch it because they may have something they want to write about. They may want to write about, I don't know, sailing or their life in Kenya or, you know, whatever you can come up with. Anything, a children's book. I was talking with a lady just the other day, and she's always wanted to write a children's book. I told her how you can become a published author. You can be a self-published children's book author if that's what interests you. So, y'all have a great week. Remember to buy my books. Please find me on Amazon or come to my website. That's how I'm making a living, is selling the books I write. And Judson Carroll is my name. And you can find all my books under the name of Judson Carroll. Website's judsoncarroll.com. You can find me on Amazon under Judson Carroll. Two Judson Carrolls. One of them likes to write about, well, one of them wrote about 100 years ago about history and a lot about Masonic order. I have no interest in the Masonic order. I write about herbs, so you can find me there. Y'all have a wonderful week. Enjoy spring. I hope it's warm where you are. I hope it gets a whole lot warmer soon in Ukraine. We'll update my best friend, who I've told you before, lives in Odessa. I have not heard from him now a month. I don't think these are good for her or her family. Her mother, who lives in Mariupol, where they said 80 to 90% of all civilian homes have been bombed now. So let's take a few moments to say prayers for peace and take the next week to enjoy the peace we have and the days of our lives that we take too often for granted. All right, y'all. Have a great week.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.